All right, guys, it is Saturday, so moved some vehicles around. Pulled the Monte Carlo over here, where I got room to open the doors and walk around it, get in and out of it. I'm going to work on some floors today. I never did finish tack welding this quarter in up here after I put new MIG wire in. Somebody had asked in the comments. I use a 30 MIG wire and tip, and the main reason is it's kind of in the middle between 25 or 35, so I just do 30 for everything. So I'm going to be doing some floor work today, kind of a little bit of hit and miss on everything. I'm going to do some welding on the floors, some welding on the quarter, and just kind of try to keep a steady pace all day and then work on it again tomorrow if it doesn't rain. I haven't looked at the weather. So this was laying in the car. This is the brake pedal assembly out of the car, and this is really rusty. It actually set, I think it was on the back of one of them other cars back there, just laying in the trunk without a trunk lid. So it got rained on, and this is bare metal from the factory, so it got pretty rusty. The pedal was kind of stiff on it, so what I'm going to do is I've already taken it apart, and I'm actually going to soak this and this in muriatic acid, and the pin as well, because the pin's kind of rusty. I'm going to soak those in muriatic acid, and then when it gets the rust eaten off of it, I will blast them, because it always flash rusts when I rinse it. But it's easier to blast it, the light coating, off than it is to try to blast this clean like it is right now. So anyway, those are going to get soaked, and then all this stuff will get painted separately, and the bushings I'll clean up. These are actually still in nice shape. They got rust crap on them. Anyway, I'm just going to clean that off there and then put it back together, and it should be a nice restored brake pedal. I'll probably use some, I don't know, semi-gloss black or satin black Krylon or something on this. I have some Krylon that's the it's paint, primer, and everything all in one is what they claim. So this will be bare metal, so instead of having to go back and prime it and then sand it and then paint it, I'm just going to blast it with Krylon and rock and roll. Alright guys, so I thought I'd give a little bit more insight on something I mentioned in a video, and I was a little bit vague on it, so I'm going to kind of run you guys through what I'm talking about. So this turbo Buick V6, this is a draw-through turbo V6. It takes a carburetor. So everything, the air and everything, goes into this carburetor, then it goes into the turbocharger, and then goes into the engine. So this is what's called a draw-through system. So it's reliant on the carburetor to get the stuff down in the engines, so the turbo can do the work. That's the Quadrajet, so it has a spread bore design, so I'm putting a Holley double pumper on it because I do not want vacuum secondaries on this application. The beauty of the double pumper is I can really richen the crap out of them secondaries to fine-tune this thing to what I need. Now, these G-bodies, they generally don't have a lot of hood clearance anyway. Even a small block Chevy doesn't have a lot of clearance for, if you put like an aftermarket 14-inch open style element air cleaner on a regular old carbureted small block and a G-body, you usually have to run that drop base because the air cleaner will hit your hood. So I know just by looking at this that I'm going to be running into clearance issues, because I have to put a spacer on here for clearance for that double pumper. And I'm putting an aftermarket cast aluminum air hat on here like you would see for like on a Pro Charger application, or a blow-through style turbo. It's a Spectra brand, but anyway, that's what I'm going to put on the top of it, and they're kind of tall as well. So I'm going to need some hood clearance, and this is offset off the side of the engine there, off the side of the car. So this is dead middle of the car, and you can see the carburetor way over there. So the turbo's actually in the center. Now, on Monte Carlos, 78 to 88. Now, I don't know for sure if 78 they had a turbo Monte Carlo, but they did a turbo Regal. I can only assume they did a Monte Carlo, but they run it in a Monte Carlo. The last year was 81, I believe, and this is this body style. This is 81 to 88 body style, and they did this same setup in an 81 Monte Carlo. Now the Monte Carlos have a little bolt-on scoop that was not functional. It wasn't for hood clearance or anything, and they actually are setting offset of the hood over here on this side, and it's pretty interesting. And what I was looking at, I thought about buying one off eBay. There's a few of them on eBay for sale. And I got to looking at that scoop, and it is identical in the shape, the way the ramp of the front comes up soft, and then it kind of has, it's not just straight down at the back, it kind of has a little bitty kick to it, and that is exactly the way the Turbo Buick Regal hoods are for 78 to 80. The 78 to 80 Turbo Regals, they have a bigger hood scoop than the Turbo Regal from 81 to 87, like a Grand National Turbo T or whatever. But the 78 to 80 Turbo Regals have a big hood scoop, and it has the same shape at the front and the back as the Monte Carlo, except the Monte Carlo's a little bitty thing. So what I'm going to do is cut up a factory Buick hood scoop, section it 4 ways, put it back together, and I'm going to weld it to the hood. And that will actually, I will be able to cut a hole in the bottom of the hood and make clearance for my air cleaner. So it'll actually be a functioning hood scoop. So I'll show you the Buick hood I'm talking about. All right, so this is a Turbo Buick hood for like a Regal 78 to 80. It's actually off my Century. Now, my Century had an engine fire, and it is, I don't know if you can see it in the video, that whole top is caved in right there. So the car caught on fire on the side of the road, and it was a while before the fire department come out and got it out. So this hood is completely warped and wasted, and the front's all bent. I don't think you can see it from here. The front's kind of caved downward, and that's where they were trying to pry it open. So anyway, this hood scoop, you can see the size of it. It's pretty large. It takes up a big space in the center of that hood, but it has the same design element at the back, this angle, and the front angle of the Monte Carlo hood. It's just that scoop for the Monte Carlo hood is smaller. So I'm going to section the crap out of this and basically build a replica of the 78 to 81 Monte Carlo scoop, but I'm going to actually weld it and it'll be metal. Now, this thing is pretty pitted because, you know, it burned the paint off of it, but the scoop itself is not all caved in or anything from the heat. But I can blast this, and you know, I got something to work with. I don't think it's going to blast through it, but it is pretty pitted right through here. But I can make it work. But I'm not really wasting the hood because the hood's already wasted, is what I'm basically trying to get at, because that whole front's caved in, and this hood would have gotten so hot that it would be a real mess to try to body work that and get that all worked out. So I'm just going to scrap it. It's got a giant bump right here, a bubble right here, and it's from the heat. You know, the heat warped the hood real bad, so there's no way I'd try to reuse this hood on a car, but it'll make a good scoop for parts, you know what I mean? All right, guys, so I'm looking at this is on my computer screen. This is at eBay. This is a Monte Carlo hood scoop, and it's for the 3.8 turbo Buick V6 that they put in the Monte Carlos back in the early days. So this scoop is a lot smaller than the Buick turbo cars, and this was offset on the hood. But when I look at this, it has like an easy slope up this side, but it kind of has that, you know, more slanted back here. Anyway, it's supposed to have a couple of emblems on it. Let's see if I can find those. So that's a front view. That's a rear view. So it's supposed to have these little emblems here stuck onto it. And this is just a bolt-on scoop. It was just an appearance. It wasn't functional. So it has studs on the bottom of it that go through a hole in the hood. Now I think I'm going to run into problems with my cold air hat that I'm putting on top of the carburetor after I put a spacer on it and I put a double pumper Holley on it. The hood is probably not going to want to shut. I'm going to need a little bit of clearance. So I have that 79 Buick Turbo Century hood that actually was burnt. Okay, so I've got 2 brand new floor pans for this side. Anyway, I had cut the floors out of this car to put in another car. This car was rust-free, really nice. And I had turned it into a parts car, and now I'm making it not a parts car anymore. This side is way too crusty. This I cut out of the other car. This is too crusty. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to go ahead and buy a new one later. I'll buy one next month. But for now, I'm going to get these two in. So I've got a brand new rear here. and I've got a new front. I had started, I cut one out of one of the other cars in the back, and I had a rust hole here, so I went in and hand fabbed this piece and started putting it in, and when I got to blasting on it, that's how bad this side got. So that come from this side, so I just decided it'd probably be better just go ahead and buy a new one. That's what I did. So I'm going to be putting a new front floor pan and a rear floor pan on this side. That side will get a brand new one, but not replacing that one because there's nothing wrong with that one. That one's really nice. So I've got to get in here and remove a pinch weld up through here. I haven't really decided where I'm going to cut this yet. Every time you go to do this, the pans never really match up. Now there are some really cheap, crappy looking ones on eBay, and if you get to looking at them, they're more square looking instead of rounded. So I didn't get those. Those are really, really cheap. These, they have the sticker on them, but they're actually Goodmark. And Goodmark tends to fit pretty good. And you can tell by looking at this that it's kind of proper the way it's made with the beads and everything. It's kind of just about the same as what's in there. And I didn't notice that little square right there, and I was like, what the heck is that for? And it's actually right there. So anyway, I'm not using the full floor. I'm just going to replace what I've already got cut out, except I'm going to use the flange. So I've got to remove what's left of the flange from the other one over here. And this one, I think I'm going to do a whole floor middle insert here. So this actually is spot welded right through here on this flange. So I'm thinking about drilling these spot welds out and, you know, replace this whole flange piece, and then just go ahead and cut it all the way around right here, and then up and over and right straight even here. So it'll be a whole center replaced in it. I don't want to have to remove all these brackets and the floor brace and all this crap just to put these in. I mean, the floor is in really nice shape in this car, other than where I butchered it out to put it in another car. But anyway, that's the plan. We'll put new floor pans in it. So hopefully I can get those going this weekend. I'd like to get this done and the quarter panel on the other side fully welded, tack welded up, and then have it done. And I don't know if I'll get it ground or not. There's not really a whole lot more welding to do on this. It's just the top. There's a few more down through there, and there's some on the bottom. So I guess all the way around, I thought I had the ends almost fully welded, but apparently not. So that's kind of where I'm at. I got a lot of little crap to do, so I'll just keep, you know, as I'm working on that, the pans and stuff and the quarter today, I'm just going to keep kind of utilizing the muriatic acid, and I'm sure there's going to be more stuff that I need to soak, so I'll go through some of the pieces, and if I have something else that's pretty rusty, I'll get it in muriatic acid as well. Just kind of keep a flow going all day, and it's kind of doing double duty things. All right, so this is the rear floor pan for this side here, and the reason I'm mainly just going to do the insert is because it doesn't 100% match up fully, but this down here looks pretty correct. So hopefully I can get these beads to match up between that one and that one, because I'm going to cut it probably right through there. So I may have to do a little tweaking and articulating with that, but I think I can get it. Like this up here, this part that folds up, this has 3 ribs and they're kind of angled. This doesn't have anything like that. This is for the back seat to hook into, and it's actually got spot welds right here. So I know there's probably a brace underneath the car right there or something. But anyway, when you look at where the seat belt bolts into right here, this is a stamped raised pad right here, and it has the nut plate on the back side. You can see the spot welds for it to hold it on. This is just a circle. It's just a hole cut in it. There's no stamping, so this would be weak to try to put a seat belt anchor in. This is going to be strong because it's stamped out, but it also has the piece put on the back, which I would have to remove and plug weld to this one, but I still wouldn't have the stamped part. So just another reason why I'm just going to cut it and just do an insert. Rule number 1 of sheet metal replacement is to keep as much original as you can. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, because this is just going to create problems trying to make this whole thing fit. So I'm just going to continue my cut right through here and probably across and up along that edge up in here, right even with this flange here. And I am going to use the flange, and that's it right there. So actually that flange doesn't look as high as this one, so I better do some measuring. But that's the plan. And then I need to find the plug plates for this. I know I've got them in them other cars, at least have them too, but I'm pretty sure these are in a box somewhere. But that'll be really nice, man. It'll have, you know, kind of a correctish style floor pan with the stampings and stuff in it. You know, kind of correct, I guess. But when I first got this car and I started working on the floors, it had a little bit of stuff up here, and I put a patch in here and I put a little patch in up here, and it looks like I replaced the pan with something else because there's plug welds here, but I don't really remember. And anyway, I ended up cutting it out and putting it in the other car anyway. But now I've got to remove all that garbage and fix it with that. Okay, I almost have this one fully welded in. So it is butt welded, pretty much three-sided, and then it's plug welded on the flange just like factory on this side. But I took my time and I made sure the metal was dead even everywhere, so when it's ground it should look really nice. The front, there was leftover flange right here, and I'm starting to try to remove it. I got a little bit of it off, but it's pretty tough, so it's going to take a little bit to get the remainder of this flange here off. Then after it's off, I need to go in here and hammer and dolly this edge after I get done, because the air hammer usually distorts the flange a little bit. I need to grind off the little bit of metal that's left. When I air hammered off, sometimes it leaves little slivers. Then I need to go around the whole edge about a 1/4 inch or so, just to get it to bare metal, so I'll have something to tack to when I butt weld the new pan in. But I'll have to get the pan, you know, cut to fit, and I always cut it out a little bit bigger and then sneak up on it, trim it to fit, so I don't cut it too short right off the bat. But anyway, that one was, it took several hours to get it in there, because it was, you know, put it in, check fit, you know, grind, fit, grind, fit, grind, fit, and then it, you know, aftermarket floor pans, these are the better ones, but they're not identical to stock. They're very close, but they most definitely didn't have the same curvatures on the corners. The curves are not right, so I had to go in and kind of reshape it a little bit. And then over here I actually had to split it 3 times right here on this very corner, and then to get it to fold in, and then I welded it back up. But it still looks good. It'll still look good when it's done, you know, when I grind both sides and everything. It's a big job putting floor pans in, especially when you take the time to butt weld them in. A lot of people will just, you know, put a new floor pan and they'll actually just overlap it a little bit and then either tack it on there or plug weld it on, and then when you're under the car you see the step in it, you know what I mean? And then a lot of people will try to, they'll think they can get under there with undercoating and just undercoat around the edge, and you won't see it, and it's not the case. You'll always be able to see it because it's the thickness of the metal, you know, the difference in the thickness of the metal. So kind of crazy, but I'm pretty happy with it. I'm really happy with it fits. It's really nice. Now if I can get this one to fit that good, I will be happy. But I'm not going to be happy until, you know, 4 or 5 hours of work's put into it. I got the new pan kind of trimmed a little bit so it'll actually lay down in there a little bit, so I can really get a good mark on the bottom of it. So what I've done is I've got the floor of the car kind of cut out the way I want it, and then I've got this to where I placed it in there. I actually had a screw in it, and that was to make sure this was centered up and everything was good. But I got under there with my Sharpie and I drew basically traced out, so when I turn this over I'll know where to cut it at. I have decided to go ahead and use this full side of this. I had cut this pan out. It's cut like right along here somewhere on the factory pan, but this new floor pan is a half. It comes with half of the trans tunnel, and I've decided I'm going to go ahead and use it. So the reason is I'm going to get rid of a bunch of the floor shifter stuff, because I'm putting this car to a bench seat. And I talked about this in an older video. I don't have a pair of the low back factory G-body bucket seats for this car. If I did, I'd put them in here with the console and the factory shifter and stuff, but I don't. I've got a tilt column that's a column shift, and I have a split bench. So that's what I'm going to put in here. But using half of it, it will get rid of the shifter cable hole with the 2 screw holes. It'll get rid of this patch right here. I don't even remember why I patched that. I think this car had an aftermarket shifter in it at one time, if I remember. I don't really remember. It'll get rid of this hole that I put in there, and it'll get rid of this nut zert. So I will have to get rid of this nut zert. So I'll just completely remove it and then just weld a piece of metal in there, but weld it in. But that's going to get rid of me having to go in and patch all this crap. It'll just be a straight cut, because I got to weld anyway. Got to weld a straight line, so there's really no difference there. But that's the plan. So I luckily found another cutoff wheel over there in my box. I got a box full of cutoff wheels and grinding discs and stuff. So I went and bought 3 new cutoff wheels at Tractor Supply there like 2 weeks ago, and this was the last one I had. That's all that's left of it. So I went in there and dug around. I found a used one, but it's almost all there. So luckily I have enough to get this cut. But what a mess, man. This is and It's a lot of work to do floor pans on a car, especially when you go in and butt weld them, and you know, you try to do a decent job on them to where everything fits well. But I ended up removing the seat bracket out of the floor. And, the main reason I removed the seat bracket that goes up here is where I had cut it before was right at the front of the flange where it's spot welded to the floorboard. So there's no way I could have butt welded the floor pan to the factory floor because that bracket would have been in the way. So I decided to go ahead and drill the spot welds out of it and remove it. So that's what I did. And when I tried to remove the bracket, it kind of screwed up the floor pan a little bit. So the air hammer did. So I decided to cut it out a little bit further back. And anyway, just kind of turned into more work a little bit, but it'll end up being a nicer looking job in the end. So I'm hoping by the end of the day that this is at least tacked in there, but who knows. This is Sunday and it's already in the afternoon. It's pretty late in the afternoon actually, so I don't know how far I'm going to get, but I'd love to get it all trimmed to fit and get at least a few tacks on it. And then next month I'll go ahead and buy a new floor pan, and then I can put it in, and then I'll finish welding all this other crap up. Man, what a mess. And it's just that I pretty much messed this car up, turned it into a parts car, and then trying to make it not a parts car anymore has turned into a really big fiasco. I still need to work on this quarter panel, some hammer and dolly and some metal shrinking and stuff, and then weld up their old slide hammer holes. But anyway, it's just kind of one project at a time, unless I get tired of messing with something, and then I'll move over here and do something. But eventually I'll get all this thing dialed in. Okay, so here's the brake pedal assembly stuff after soaking up muriatic acid. And it's already flash rusted because it's just what it does. I rinsed it with water, so it's flash rust. But anyway, the main thing is now when I go to blast it with my little light duty sandblaster, it'll do, you know, I won't have to do as much work. As scaly as it was, it would have taken a long time to blast it. Now it'll, you know, make quick work of it, and then I'll just get it painted and it'll look really, really nice. But I actually left it in there overnight and it almost removed the paint, which it usually doesn't really mess with the paint too much, but it did on this one, which is fine because I'm gonna paint it anyway. But I'm about half tempted to drill some speed holes in it like I did my 55's brake pedal and gas pedal assembly. I think it'd look pretty cool, give it a little bit of a, you know, some detail there, and I might do that. I might, you never know. Alright guys, so it got dark on me last night and I did not get to finish welding this in. So I just put up shop and called it a day. So I will continue this next weekend. Today is Monday and it has been raining all morning. So I haven't been able to pull my 55 out to work on Steve's 55. So I'm just kind of at the mercy of the weather at this point. So hopefully no rain next weekend and I can finish this floor pan up. But it fit pretty decent. It's going to be butt welded three-sided, and then it'll be plug welded over here on the side just like factory. But I'm pretty happy with the fit. These beads lined up pretty well. Kind of surprised because this is original floor here and here, and these beads from the aftermarket panel, they kind of lined up. Just a little bit of tweaking on them. I used a chisel and a hammer and just kind of reworked it a little bit with the chisel, sticking it right there on that lower corner edge right there and hitting it to get this to line up perfectly. My biggest thing for me is when I'm putting metal in, when I'm butt welding something, right before I put a tack on, I make sure it is perfectly even everywhere, because if one side's higher than the other, when you grind it, you're going to see the outline of it. So I like to spend the extra time to get that butt welded perfectly together. And sometimes you have to use a little bitty pocket flat blade screwdriver here and get it up in between there and just kind of, you know, lift up one side and get it to where you can feel it, where it's dead even, and then I'll just hold that right there where I've got it and then tack it. So it takes more time, but it turns out to be really nice in the end. But I'm pretty happy with it. It's going to end up being I'm going to turn it into a nice car. It was definitely on death row It was going to be a parts car, and now I'm turning it back into a good project. Thanks for watching.